This is Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I trust today you will consider this like a vitamin or a supplement for your mind and heart, and wherever you receive podcasts from. iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, Podbean, all of these, iHeartRadio. Would you please subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, leave a rating and a brief written review. I want to talk today about what I believe to be a very important subject, and that is it is indispensable that you and I stay as balanced as possible. Now, there is somewhat a myth that hour by hour, day by day, moment by moment, you can keep everything balanced: work and home and family and career and finances and health. And that's unrealistic. That's sort of like checking the stock market every minute. You have to give it some time, but you can't go a long time without checking to see that you're balanced. There's a reason that birds have two wings. They'd be in a mess if they only flew with one wing. So they need to stay balanced. Let's talk about some areas where it is easy to get out of balance and where, especially as leaders, we need to stay in balance. And then maybe some things just to keep in mind on when we really need to check ourselves. You need to always keep in balance your own personal needs as a leader, as a person, as a dad, a mom, husband, spouse, friend, as well as the needs of your organization. Again, this is a balancing act. There are days when there are things happening in your organization, your business, even your family, that is going to take all of your time and all of your energy. But you do have to keep life somewhat balanced. Don't let the organization get such control that you don't think about you and your family's needs as well. And then you have to balance family commitments. I'm at a stage in my life where I have no children at home. They are grown. And so I have a little more freedom. And I have to keep that in mind if I begin to make demands on some of the young mothers and fathers who still have family commitments and other outside commitments. One of the best things you can do is step back and realize that not everyone is in your circumstance. Not everyone's life experience is yours, and therefore what you are able to do, it may be impossible for others to do. So keep a balance. I think this is very important in the area of energy. It's one of the reasons that I got into a physical fitness routine 2.5 years ago, and it has so elevated my level of energy. I've always been an early riser, but I have found that if I book in my days with early rising and morning routines and going to bed at a decent hour, and before I do having an evening routine, this helps to center me. It helps me to keep my balance. It helps me to be able, by evaluating my day and my week and my month, it allows me to see when things are out of balance. Because oftentimes, my friend, we are the last ones to know when our lives are getting out of balance. We're so caught up in it. We're so immersed in it. We feel the critical deadlines. And oftentimes there are times when exactly you will have to be a little bit out of balance, but you cannot live your entire life that way. You have to have rhythm and balance to it. Always make sure you keep the proper balance, and this is not going to sound like balance as much as it sounds like an absolute, and it is, but it's an absolute that will keep you well balanced, and that is never compromise your values and don't cut corners. There will be people who try to do a balancing act with ethics. You cannot balance ethics. You are either an ethical leader or you are not. You are either going to live by your convictions and your values and your beliefs, or you're going to put them out for the highest bid. This is one area where you have to have an absolute foundation of values, or you will not live a productive or a balanced life. Another thing you have to balance is being an optimist and yet being a realist. Now, the people in my life who have a little more of a tendency to be negatively inspired, a little more, they would say I would say they're a pessimist. They think they're a realist. I think an optimist is actually a realist. I think a pessimist is somebody who's fallen into some very bad habits. But the fact of the matter is, you can spin off all kinds of optimistic, pithy statements and maxims and rules of thumb, which I do often. But the fact of the matter is, even though I am by nature an encourager, an optimistic person, I try to see the silver lining behind every cloud. One of the things that reviewing my days, my week, and my month, and my quarter does for me, as well as the year, is it helps me be realistic. I can do the cheerleading all day long, but if my activity and actions and the activity and actions of my team are not pushing us toward our goal, and we're not going to reach our goal, I have to set my optimism aside for just a moment and look at it realistically and begin to ask the questions. What adjustments do I need to make? What do I need to do differently? And so one of the balancing acts, my leadership friend, is you have to balance your optimistic outlook and still remain realistic and see things as they are. That's why you can't go on your gut and hunches and your intuition alone. That's why you have to know what's happening not only in your own life, but what's happening in your family, what's happening in the world, and what's happening at your business or your organization that you're involved with. Another balance that's very important is you need to cultivate and become consistent in your actions and yet willing to adapt to change. I have so many routines now that are so interwoven into my life. It's very difficult for me to change them. Even when I'm on vacation, I will still kind of try to do some of those sorts of things. And whereas you know that no one is a bigger advocate for following routines, internalizing habits that are productive and that are going to move you forward, and that you do them incrementally, consistently, and daily. Yet, we can't be so focused on that we're not looking out on the horizon to see opportunities that are presenting themselves and see areas in which we personally and the organization needs to change. So one of those balancing acts is, yes, I want to cultivate a consistent routine in my life that gets things done, but I also want to have my ear to the ground, my eye to the horizon, that I'm willing to change in areas where I can change. Another area that I think is very difficult for leaders to keep a balance, I think it's very difficult for parents as well, and that is there are so many demands from others on you that there's little thinking and reflecting time. One of the reasons for an early morning routine is, if nothing more, if you get up out of bed earlier than anyone else in your home, you do have some built-in thinking and reflecting time. Well, demands are not going to go away. People are always going to have demands. That's a part of why you are where you are, ma'am or sir. But the fact of the matter is, don't get so busy meeting the demands of your children, your spouse, your friends, the organizations you're involved with, your church, where you work, that you forget to tune into what's happening in your own life and take time to reflect and grow and think. Another balance is holding your emotions when everyone's losing theirs. Some of us are more emotional by nature, and if you are a person who is a reactor, this will even be more difficult for you. But the fact of the matter is, the higher you are in the leadership of your organization, the more you're going to have to get your emotions under control. Does that mean it's going to work perfectly every time? Of course not. But just because everyone else is running around saying the end is near, this is it, we're going to go down, we're not going to make it, you have to be the voice of sanctified reason, of someone who has data and has studied and thought and worked your way through it. And don't just give in to the emotionalism of others. The other thing that will help you in being balanced is doing a little reflection periodically and even asking trusted confidants. All of us have some areas in our own lives that we don't see. We aren't aware perhaps of how we react or what we say or even some of our thinking. So keep improving, but recognize you may indeed have blind spots that need to be worked on. Another balancing act that's been very difficult for me down through the years is to use my strengths and try to minimize and manage my weaknesses. Now, this was very difficult as a younger leader because we didn't have resources, we didn't have staff. I was probably less than a one-person office, and therefore I really had to work at it. And I think in the early days I subscribed to the theory that to get better I had to really work almost full-time on my weaknesses to get better. It was at a conference where I heard that really what you need to do is to work on your strengths and mitigate or manage or bring someone alongside of you to help with your weaknesses. I was able to go a little farther once I was able to bring staff on, because the tendency when you first start hiring staff is to bring on people who think, act, look just like you. And it's not only diversity that's needed, it is diversity of needs, skills, backgrounds. All of those things are so very important. But the fact is, try to mitigate your weaknesses. I don't mean that we shouldn't strive to get a little better at it, but you're never going to go around the country teaching seminars on your weaknesses. You're just not. So you need to learn to manage them and mitigate them and really develop your strengths. Get in your wheelhouse and become an expert. You need to alternate periods of hard work with times for fun. I'm recording this when in just a few hours my wife and I are going on a couple of weeks vacation. And so I have to, just like with my routines, I have to begin today a routine of unwinding, of letting go of some things, that it's okay that I'm not going to do certain things for a couple of weeks. It's not just enough to be a hard worker. You also need to be a person who gets proper rest, restoration, and the word vacation's root word is the word vacate. It's okay to go away. If your organization falls apart because you're gone for a week or so, you have not built a really good organization yet. So one of the balances, work hard, and when you're there, work hard. And when you're playing and resting, play and rest hard as well. You have to also balance the fact that if you take chances, if you go off into new areas, you are going to make mistakes and things aren't going to work out. The balance here I'm trying to say is there is this natural tendency, if something doesn't work out, we just say, well, I'll never try that again. I'm going to continue then to just live on status quo avenue. You can't do that. You have to balance taking opportunities, taking risks, moving ahead, but you need to do it in a calculated manner. And when it doesn't work out, rather than saying, well, I knew it wouldn't, do a postmortem and ask yourself, what could I have done better? What was the lesson that I learned? And an important one that I ask myself is simply this: what didn't I see that I should have seen? And what didn't I act upon soon enough that I should have? And then there are sometimes, my friends, when you look at it from all different angles, you will realize it just wasn't the right thing to do. Admit it, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and move on. You also need to keep a balance from being the leader to be the serious leader and developing a sense of humor. Humor is the oil that keeps the machinery lubricated. There are times when I have laughed at something that really, on reflection, probably wasn't all that funny, but at that point, God knew I needed a laugh. In the Bible, in the old translation I grew up with, it says, "A merry heart doeth good like a medicine." So yes, there are times we have to be serious. There's even perhaps a few issues in life where you have to be somewhat stern and strict. But go ahead and have fun. It's all right for people to see you laugh. It humanizes you. Plus, it's just a great tension relievers. The other thing is you have to balance your commitment to your family and to the people you're responsible for with trying to meet new people and develop new relationships. Now, I hear people say all the time it's lonely at the top being a leader, but listen to me, leadership friends, you're never alone. And secondly, we should be cultivating colleagues, coaches, mentors, friends, mentees, people that we're pouring into their life. Never just be a lone ranger. Make sure that you are pouring your life into someone else and that you're open to others speaking into your life. Well, these are some of the areas where I think we have to continually work at being balanced. You've been listening to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I trust today this was like a vitamin or a supplement for your mind and heart. And wherever you receive this podcast, would you please subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom and leave a brief rating and review? Remember, my leadership friend, you are doing better than you think you are. And until next time, this is Dr. Ron saying, have a great and blessed day.